All right, well, welcome everybody back. Two Dudes Views. I'm Quinton Scott, co-host Matt Layton. And this week we're talking about a favorite topic of everybody's complaining on social media about your city government or city council. Matt is a former city council member. One may say reformed. He left that position but he has more expertise in this than I do. I don't even live in a municipal area. I live in our county, so I don't get to vote for our city council members. But city council directly affects my day to day city taxes, restaurants, things like that. But the big thing, and really what kind of struck our attention on this was looking on Facebook, the place for all wisdom and all knowledge, and saw a post where there was a company that was supposedly coming into our area, and the complaint was our city council denied it coming in. And so I texted Matt and said, "Hey, I tell me more about how municipal governments work because I don't just think they just say yes or no." And so we really kind of got on the conversation of there's a lot more involved in just a major corporation rolling up to your 15, 20,000 population city and saying like we want to be here. And so Matt, I don't know if you want to kind of give any set frame or anything about kind of how that works and what you would even like in the past when you were a council member, what you even looked at during that time.
Sure. First of all, I spent a couple of years on the local city council, and let's just say I was completely full of civic pride. So I didn't run for reelection and kind of went back into the business world. And Quentin here himself, while maybe not in municipal government, he's currently on the local school board. So a lot of these same types of ideas in terms of folks armchair quarterbacking out in the communities on social media. He gets a lot of that same feedback, but kind of in terms of, and Quentin did text me about this, and it brought up a lot of memories and thoughts I had because especially if it's a major business or a corporation that's got the potential to bring in a large number of jobs, these places don't normally turn up and just beg a city to let you in, right? They've got a long list. They've done their due diligence. They're probably smarter businesses like that are probably smarter than most municipal governments in terms of they've done their due diligence. They have a list of target cities or target areas, and then they're going about, right, as a business decision which areas will lead us to the best outcome for our business. And that's really not like the most business or make the most profit. That also has to do with, city A may be the best place for us to manufacture and or sell our goods, but city B has this long list of incentives, right? That now then puts B over A just because the city's willing to pay the utilities for 5 years, right? Give someone, a free 20 acres to build on, pays half the salary for X number of jobs the business is promising to, create in the area. So a lot of that decision comes down to that the city, it may be great for the city, all the citizens may want it, the city council people may want it. But at the end of the day, is it too expensive for the city itself to pay or incentivize that business to come in, right? Does the incentives cost more than the benefit in the short term? I mean, maybe, hey, we're going to pay these incentives and 25 years down the road, we're going to have, 700 new jobs, right? And sales tax is going to increase, and we're going to create more tourism coming into the city. But as we wait for those 25 years to, come to fruition, how much are we paying today, right? What's the negative consequences to largely incentivizing a business to come in? And then also, maybe a business is putting ideas out into the ether, right? They're talking about, hey, I want to come to, and again, we'll use Ada, Oklahoma as an example. I want to move my business to Ada, Oklahoma, but then Are the people are enough people qualified in the area to do whatever this job is, right? Whether it's manufacturing, sales, all of these things come into play. And at the end of the day, it does land on kind of that city council's lap, and then even the planning and zoning committee, right? I mean, if the business comes in and they're some kind of industrial manufacturing company, but the best place for that business is zoned residential, right, or R2 or whatever, without getting too far into the weeds. Does the city rezone for that business in order to create those jobs? And how do those residents around that newly rezoned area feel that I'm going to have a manufacturing plant in my backyard? So there's a lot of considerations that go into should we bring XYZ business in, and is that a good long term or short term decision for the community?
Yeah, and you brought up a good point that I hadn't thought about until just now. But someone lives in the county and serves on a school board that is outside the city limits. One of our favorite terms to hear is annexation. You throw the term annexation around the county, and you will have people throwing a fit and going to city council meetings and going to kind of the commissioner meetings and going to commissioner's office. So I think in reality, we have to look at cities are only given so many square footage or miles to actually operate their municipal government in. And so there's sometimes where, say, it's a super Kmart wants to come in, whether they're not even in business anymore, I don't think. So, say Super Target wants to come into Ada. We have a Super Walmart. Well, what does that footprint look like? Where are they going to go? Is there any even room? And if you put them in a place, would it hinder any schools being built, the college growing? Would it hinder anything down the road? And so there's a lot of things in which some cities aren't that big, you know, landmass wise, to where annexation becomes a huge problem because you're going to annex, a whole cattle ranch, but then you got to develop the whole thing. So that costs you millions of dollars. So I don't know if you ever had any workings with it, but talk a little bit about annexation and kind of that heartburn with the city council member of like, we got to grow. How do we make the city bigger, but not piss everyone off, honestly?
Yeah, then that's a whole other topic. I want to mention something else before we go there, and it just kind of jumped into my head. It's kind of the chicken and the egg philosophy, or is it the if we build it, they will come, right? So Quinton mentioned what'd you say, super target.
Yeah.
So say you have a super Walmart in the area, everyone gets excited. I may or may not like Walmart, or I want some more choices. Well, we buckle down and bring a super Target into the area. One, will that attract more people to the area in order to support that super Target? Or did what you do is really run the super Walmart out of business? Now you've got a super Target that all those workers at the Walmart moved over to the Target, and you've got a net zero, and in the process you've destroyed a business, right? So that's another wrinkle here, and because we see it all of the time. I want a Chick-fil-A in my city. Well, great, you bring in a Chick-fil-A. How many taco shops and Sonics now go out of business, and we see it all the time. Just abandoned kind of restaurants and fast food places as we bring in new eateries. So one of the big things you always have to think about is, do you even have the sales base? Do you have the customer base to support all of the? And we kind of moved away from manufacturing into retail and eating, but it's really the same
Hmm.
thing. Is there a population willing to support whatever new business you bring in? And you know what? Everyone may want that brand new Chick-fil-A, but if it's going to run three other businesses out of business in order for you to bring that in, you're a net zero, or you maybe even have had a negative impact on the local community. Kind of the same way with annexation, do we need more space and area to, build a new business or a new super target? Okay, great. You step outside, then you've really just kind of expanded that area of influence, positive and negative. People inside the city may want and love it. Those people outside of the city are probably living there for a reason. They don't want to be incorporated inside the city limits. That, is a whole other area of, laws and regulations that then maybe now they're applicable to. So then
Hmm.
you kind of you increase the area of people that are impacted positively and negatively here. And really it's the same, and again, it's the same idea, especially in lower populated rural areas. Do you even have the population to support the potential new jobs coming in and or the customer base that's going to be needed for a new store or a new restaurant?
Yeah, I'd like to go back to the closing of buildings and businesses in a little bit, or maybe even in another episode. But one thing you talked about that struck me while you were talking is also infrastructure. You're talking Ada, just because we keep talking about, is a town full of two-way roads and not enough parking, candidly. We already have the complaint of our main street and our downtown shopping doesn't have enough parking. Things like that occur when we have the parade and all kinds of stuff. And so you talk about, or people talk about, we want this business, we want that business. You also have to look then if you bring in a super target, that's candidly more probably theft that your PD has to mess with. Then you have the infrastructure of power, sewage, all of this, the footprint that they put on. If Super Target draws so much power, what does the electric company do? Things like that. And so I think it's always interesting that how quick it is to go to Facebook and complain instead of actually becoming knowledgeable and even asking. You said this at the very beginning, is it just a representative of the business just casually said, like, we'd love to come to Ada, but your city council, to see if they could get people riled up, because they're, hey, guess what, they're watching Facebook too. If they can get enough reaction, enough following of the post, they may start marketing in the area, they may start doing something.
Yeah, and
And
that's a,
so,
and that's exactly why I said, and that's certainly not to knock any city officials or municipal governments, but most of those businesses are smart and savvy enough, especially marketing and messaging wise, that they would do exactly that, right? They know they've asked for cash in excess of what a city's going to pay, or utility bill incentives well in excess of what that city's going to pay. But if they can, seed those armchair quarterbacks out on social media to then flood all of the sites and message boards talking about how terrible the local government is, again, without knowing any of the details behind the negotiations, they're going to do that. And they're going to go all in on doing it. I mean, we can make fun of what they say is the Russian trolls trying to impact the elections, but let's not pretend that anyone in any type of negotiation isn't doing those exactly the same types of tactics.
yeah, because at the school board level, we work off of, property tax. That's where we get the majority of our money. And that's how we pay for things, pay for our schools, pay for our improvements. So anytime that somebody makes a deal, luckily schools are protected to where, say, Ada City Schools, I'm not on that school board, but say if the city agrees that that land will not be zoned city, and so therefore there be no city taxes, the school board still protected that there is a property tax still established by the state of Oklahoma. Um, but we even have companies in our municipal area that they've been zoned and not city limits, which is insane to think, to look at the map and you can see where certain businesses sit, who came in and did exactly what you said. They came in, they shut little mom and pop shops down, and then the city legitimately gets no tax off of them other than sales tax, which probably in the numbers it all washes out, or the city is better for it. But this conversation of we want this business, we want this business, we want this business is also like, well, what are you willing to give up and pay for? Back to the infrastructure conversation. Are you willing for your taxes to go up for you to pay for new roads, new sewage, new power, everything the city's not willing to pay for right now?
It is, and we see it every single day. Drive down Main Street in any small city or big city, right? There's basically nothing left on Main Street, right? You've got little boutique shops. You may see a local restaurant. There may be a bank still down on Main Street, but all of the major, all of those businesses that have always populated, Main Street America have now moved to the outskirts of the cities because, we have enticed larger corporations and bigger businesses to come into cities, and then they've displaced kind of that downtown shopping area that everyone loves to reminisce about Mayberry, but there's not such a thing anymore, right? Just because of the exactly the types of things we're talking about here. And we're certainly not here saying that progress is bad and that shouldn't be happening, but Quinton hit the point right on the head. What are you willing to give up to maybe get a little more convenience or a little cheaper price or maybe a bigger selection of goods? Those are some of the things you give up. And kind of back to Quinton talked about parking, and it kind of reminded me of a joke. The local university there in Ada, Oklahoma, East Central University, and even the University of Oklahoma in Norman, I've heard many officials say there's not a parking problem, there's a walking problem, right? But again, as you begin packing all these different businesses and eateries and things together, yeah, honestly, land is at a premium. Location is most important. So what gets pushed out first is parking, right? So you've got to park farther away and then walk in or Uber in or public transport in. So it was just funny that you brought that up, because I remember many times hearing that. It's like, we don't have a parking problem, we have a walking problem.
Well, it's kind of in this on one of the things, and you may want to talk about something, but you brought this up about businesses come in, they build an establishment, they take up a whole city block. 2, 3 years later, guess what? Wasn't what the town wanted. Market research tanked, or they were number seven on actually number 17 Mexican food restaurant in a town of 15,000 people, or the 12th barbecue stand, and that just didn't take off. And we've been lucky here in Ada that we have another entity that usually takes those buildings over with, revamps them, and uses them for what they need to. But we currently in Ada have several buildings. We have one that was a restaurant that now sits in a part of town where we're trying to grow. That's just vacant and empty, and it's probably dilapidating because it's not being taken care of. It's not the city's job to take care of those buildings. By the way, it's not, because it's not their property. That, I don't know about you, that frustrates me to drive through a town and see empty buildings where people probably fought for that restaurant, went to bat for it, said, I'm going to eat there 3 times a week. And then now it sits empty and there's space. One, bare land that was just destroyed for a place. And then now a place that either has to be torn down or someone has to retrofit it for their area. Give me some of your thoughts on, there's no way to stop that, but that's kind of the negative of growth.
Yeah, no, and hey, I'm not sure that anyone has greatly been able to solve that issue, right? But again, that's kind of why a lot of these small towns and cities and states have these economic development communities, right? For these exact issues, because again, we talked about it as Main Street kind of gets abandoned and folks are moving out towards the suburbs and the outskirts of a city. That's exactly what you're seeing, right? Who wants to go into the internals of a city when it's clear that everyone's moving towards the outside? And then what do you do with all of those areas? And then we get all the way back around to, what incentives is the city willing to pay in order to entice someone to occupy buildings that, clearly aren't at the top of anyone's list.
Yeah.
And it's just a round circle because, again, it's a cost benefit analysis for the city. How much are we willing to pay to, help beautify an area or kind of help rebuild an area? We've seen it here in, Oklahoma City. That's at least a positive example of it. The downtown Bricktown area, right around where the Oklahoma City Thunder play, that that was one of the worst places of the city, right? Dilapidated. No one wanted to be there. Abandoned buildings. You know, but it took a lot of concerted effort and it took a lot of sales tax money in order to build that area back up and entice businesses back into it. So I mean, other than having a community, and again, it gets back to this idea that we started with about, right, is like armchair quarterbacks on social media, right? Typing your thoughts and complaining online is not going to help. But if you can bring a city together around a common cause and actually create action instead of words, that's really the only way that you're going to build up some of these areas that businesses have abandoned, businesses and people, right? Because the businesses really aren't the ones that are abandoning areas. People
Yeah.
are no longer coming there, so the businesses
Yeah.
can't survive.
Yeah. Yeah. Two things I would say practically could help is one, reach out to your chamber of commerce and say, what's a list? Give me a list of your local places that if I need this, this is where I go. We got a place in Ada. I'll give them a shout out. If you need anything, K Ryan's is the place to go. They've got the most random stuff you can find, and it's always there. Uh, and then two is Matt mentioned
I mean,
this,
hey,
but
it's kind of like an old timey general store, isn't it? Right? You walk in and you're amazed at just the stuff you find in there you never would have thought.
you ask, they've got it somewhere. They've got it. And two, and Matt mentioned this, is every city has an economic development director or a division of economic development. Ask to speak to them. Ask how you can help, you're a concerned citizen, you're seeing a part of the city die, what you can do to help revitalize it. Because I guarantee you, they're probably doing something that you're not aware of, or they're about to, or they're not even aware that something's going on in that part of their city because again, they're covering the whole municipal area thinking about it. And so, but
And you know
Matt
what?
did,
Hey, progress is slow too, especially on that large of a scale. Because I worked on a project really copying what Oklahoma City did to rebuild the Bricktown area. We passed a 1 cent sales tax in the city of Ada while I was on the city council, and that was strictly for economic development type issues, right? We were beautifying Main Street. We were upgrading the water and sewer system. We were building ballparks and splash parks for the city. And again, really mainly focusing on those internal downtown areas of the city that we've seen a lot of flight out of. How do we rebuild and re-beautify those areas so then it's enticing for a business to come into, and it's enticing for people to bring their kids down to the splash park that's right on Main Street, that we've rebuilt the sidewalks and the lamp posts and rebuilt the roads, really beautifying the area. But again, the people are who said yes. We didn't have the money to do that. We had to build a campaign. We had to ask for that sales tax money. We had to go out and sell that to all of the people, and we just put it to a vote. Luckily, we got it through because overwhelmingly the city agreed with us. Right? We want to build this up. We want our downtown to be beautiful.
yeah. And now would encourage anybody listening and watching, come to Ada, Oklahoma. We have an incredible Main Street. The work Matt and them did years ago. It was probably what 10, 12 years ago.
And you know what? Luckily,
Doing it.
and it was a penny sales tax. We didn't want it to be permanent. I think it was either on a 2 or 3 year basis, and every 2 or 3 years we put it back up to to the people to decide. I'm the last person that likes extra permanent taxes from the government. But if everyone can come together and get around a single issue or a project and say, let's do it, I'm all for it. And again, I was a big proponent of this can't be permanent. This has to expire. We need to go back to the people with a new list of projects, what we're going to do with the money, and re-ask again.
Yeah,
And
and it's
luckily, I think it's passed every time it's been up for re-election since.
yeah, got brand new roads in Ada all down Main Street, new sidewalks, new parks, new things. I was telling Matt, I think the most hidden gem of Oklahoma is Wintersmith Park, which is a gorgeous park we have here in Ada. So if you're ever in the area, stop by. Matt and his crew and the other city council members who have been since Matt have done an incredible job. And we'll give one last shout out. Matt kept mentioning Oklahoma City and Bricktown. Mayor Holt, we don't know if you guys follow him. He's doing incredible work. If anybody knows him, we'd love to have him as a guest, as maybe our first guest to speak with him. But municipal governments matter. They are what directly affect your day to day and your future, honestly.
Yeah, and
So,
hey, I would just say, I mean, again, Quentin and I are geeks and nerds, and we love this stuff. But for the majority of people, this is boring, and they don't want to waste their time, and maybe even couldn't care less about the details of what we're talking about. But because this is boring, and it may even be hard to access, and you may be hard to even know or understand, that doesn't mean it's not happening, right? I mean, I can drive down any road anywhere and there's going to be potholes, and then I can jump online and complain about how, my local city officials aren't fixing the roads. I hit the same pothole every day for 10 years. They haven't been over here. My curb's falling apart. Look, that's terrible, right? And it shouldn't be. But how many other roads aren't, right? Or how many other roads are being rebuilt? Maybe they just haven't gotten to you yet, which again, that sucks for you, right? But that doesn't mean that there's not work and progress and good things happening on the whole, right? I like to say the exception doesn't disprove the rule, right? Just because your road has a pothole, that doesn't mean everything's going to hell and no one's taking care of the city. In most cases, they are. You may just not be seeing it, right? You may be looking at a
yeah,
tree. The city's working on the entire forest.
yeah. Well, this is Two Dudes Views. Again, you can tell we get passionate. We love this stuff. It's Matt said it best. Most people don't care, but it's something we get excited about. So we'll see you next week.